In this video, we're going to build a web application together using Django as the backend and React as the front-end part. And this web app is basically a link shortener. This is really popular as a project to work with because there is a lot to learn there. There are a lot of components involved in the project. So it's a good practice to start learning Django and React.js. Of course, there are a lot of details here that I'm not going to cover. And basically here, what we want to do is building the big picture, the big structure. Then you need to go through the details and complete it step by step. But as soon as you build the whole thing, the rest is easier. So I'm not gonna cover all the possibilities. There will be a lot of bugs in the project, but we just want to learn the big parts, the important parts of the project. Now let's take a look at the web app we're going to build and see what parts it has. So the first part here we have is the nav bar, which includes home button, and then you can go to my link section, but you need to be logged in. So we have user authentication and user registration, which is really great. So here we have login and also register button in the nav bar. We can register a new user, but if you're not logged in, you still can use the web app. So here I can, for instance, put a link like this, for instance, and then create the short link. When I click on this short link, it goes to the main link. So now here, if I try to register, for instance, let's say Milad MM, or let's make it a search, and 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 register. The register part is really simple. It's not complicated. Apparently we already have this user, so let's try another thing. sh2 like this, register. Okay, now we need to log in again. Milad sh2 1 2 3 4 login, and now I can take a look at my links, which is actually containing all the links I created. So let's create a new link here, make short, and if I take a look at my link section, you can see that I have the link already converted. So I can use this short link, or I can just delete it. So I can add as much as link I want. Try, and now let's take a look at the dashboard here, so I can delete every link I want. So this is basically the main idea of this web app. It contains a lot of parts, but if I want to divide it, I can divide it into two big parts. In the first part, we're going to build basically the functionality of link shortener. Then in the second part, we're going to work on the user authentication and user registration. So let's start. I'm using Mac OS, but it doesn't matter if you use Linux or Windows. The commands are pretty much similar. The setup is pretty much similar, but I'm not going to go through the details of, setting up everything. And you need to have already all the stuff there installed on your computer already, Python, Node.js, npm, everything. But I just wanted to mention it quickly. But since I've already installed all those things on my computer, so I'm not gonna do it again. So let's first create the folders for our projects. So I'm going to open terminal in macOS and go to the directory I want. project called Link Shortener. Go to Link Shortener and create two folders, one for the backend, second one for frontend. Now we're going to start with the frontend part first, then we work on the backend part, basically creating the APIs. So cd frontend and here. So now for the frontend part, we need to have basically Node.js installed, npm and npx. So you can install Node.js by going to Node.js website, or you can just type install Node.js and you can download it for your OS. Basically, it's really simple, it's really easy. npm should come with the package with the Node.js by default, and then after that you need to install npx, which makes it really easier for you to create a React project. So npx install, okay, yeah, it's npm I or install npx. It's just basically it's a module for npm for Node.js. So you can just grab this and then install it. Also, before anything, we need an editor. Here we're going to use VS Code. So install VS Code. You can have it for your OS, download it and install it. Then you can go to the terminal and just say code dot and it will open the directory. So we have two folders, backend and frontend. Here I'm going to open a new terminal so we don't have to use the terminal of the OS. We can just use as many terminal as we want here. Now I like to go to frontend part here, so we can check Node.js version, or basically Node version, and then also I can check npm version and npx version here. Now with having npx installed, it's really easy to create a new React.js project. So we just need to say npx create React app, and then we can type a name for our project, or we can just put dot. Basically it will create the whole project in the root of the directory. So I'm gonna go with this. Okay, now it just created the project. Let's check it. We can simply run the project with npm start. And this is a really basic React.js application. Now let's get rid of the extra code in the project. For instance, in app.js, which is the main basically application in the React, and everything starts from here basically. So I can just get rid of everything inside app div tag, and I can say this is my app. Also, I'd like to get rid of all the CSS code here I have. Let's take a look at the result. So this is the only thing we get. Now for the styling, I'd like to use Bootstrap, which is basically a framework on top of CSS and JavaScript, and it makes it easier for you to come up with really quick, amazing styles. You don't have to write code in CSS or JavaScript. You can easily come up with a Bootstrap styling. That's a whole purpose of Bootstrap. So Bootstrap v version 5 actually. There is a bunch of ways to install Bootstrap, but we're going to install Bootstrap with npm basically, or you can use the bundles and CDN files, but here it's easier to use just npm install to install the packages. So let's go to VS Code, and here let me create another terminal, open another terminal, go to Frontend, and here I just want to say npm I jQuery popper and Bootstrap. Okay, now the modules got installed, and now we can start using them. The very first thing we need to do, we need to go to index the JS here, and we need to import the necessary libraries related to Bootstrap. So import, I'm gonna say Bootstrap, this CSS, Bootstrap dot mean dot CSS, and the next thing would be Bootstrap this JS Bootstrap dot bundle. When you installed VS Code, I highly suggest that you install these plugins, which make your life much easier. And some of these plugins are auto rename tag, and the other one is ES7 plus React Redux, and the other one is Prettier. So these three plugins are really useful. Okay, let's go to Bootstrap website and grab some code from there. For instance, a navbar to test if everything's okay here. So we are in Bootstrap version 5, and I'm gonna go to basically contents, forms, components. So here we have all sorts of components. Go to navbar section, and we can grab a navbar suitable for what we need. I'm gonna go with Maybe this one is looking good, I think. Just copy that. And then I go to app.js and just paste it here. Okay, let's save and see the result. Check if the project is up and running. Okay, let's see the end result. Well, as you can see, we have a really nice navbar here. Really easy, really quick with Bootstrap, and actually it's responsive. So if I try to reduce the width, you can see that we will see a hamburger menu here, sandwich menu, hamburger menu here, really easily without doing anything at all. So it's quite good. So let's modify it a little bit. I want to have my basically app name here. So Link Shortener. And I want to have home, and then instead of features I want to have my links, and I want to get rid of the extra button here. I don't need it. Okay, and let's, instead of this text, I want to just add something like this for now. Login register. I think it looks good for now. Okay. Now what I want to do, I'd like to introduce components in React.js, which makes things easier, really easier. And so, but it's not really complicated thing. Instead of pasting the code for the navbar here, I can create another file for the navbar, and then import that basically file and then use it over and over wherever I want. So if I have multiple pages, I can create the navbar once and then use it multiple times. So let's create a folder inside src called components. You can name it whatever you want. Doesn't have to be components, but it's easier to understand. Components. And inside that, we create a new JS file called header, for instance. You can name it whatever you want. You can call it navbar. But we want to call it header and basically put everything that we need as the header for all the pages. And now here we need to create the structure for a component in React.js. So if you install the module, the plugin I told you, which was ES7 plus React for React, you can just type RACE and then hit enter, and then it generates basically the structure, the basic structure automatically. Or you can just type all the code here. But because this is what we are going to do a lot, it's easier to have that plugin installed. Okay, let me grab all the code from app.js. Just grab it and paste it here. One thing you need to pay attention is that when you create a component should always have a single element as the root. So the whole component should be wrapped in only one single tag. Basically, you can't have two divs like this. If I add another div like this, it's not acceptable by React.js. So you need to always have one tag as the parent tag. Let's save it. Now we can import this header and use it wherever we want. So I go to app.js here, and the only thing I need to do, just importing header from components and header, and then I can come here and use header like this, like a normal element. If I check the result, it's exactly the same as before, but now we have a header component that we can use it wherever we want without repeating our code. Okay, now let's also add a footer and add some information in the footer. It's not a big deal, but it's good to have it. Footer.js and RFC like this, and let's add some information here. For instance, here also you can use a navbar as well, or you can just go ahead with a simple text. It's up to you. So what I want to do, when I use a really simple navbar class name. So one thing you need to pay attention that when you want to add a class to an element in React.js, instead of class you need to say class name. Even if you type class, it will work, but there will be some warnings, and it's better to change it to class name. So let's go back to header and fix these class attributes with class name actually. So I can quickly or even I can actually replace it with class name like this. Now let's get back to footer.js and add some classes to this div tag. So basically with Bootstrap we don't need to use CSS, and we can use some ready to use classes, and it makes it really easier. So I can say I want to use navbar from Bootstrap, or you can just grab some code from here. For instance, I can just copy this instead of typing everything and paste it here. Again, you need to change class to class name. What's going on? Okay. If I take a look at the results, so we didn't import it, so let's import it. Import footer from components footer, and here we can add footer. So you can see that we have header, and we have the navbar, and we have the footer, but the footer is not in the bottom of the page. So what we can do, we can use a class from Bootstrap called fixed bottom. And also I want to change the color to, instead of BG light, to BG dark. Let's check it. Okay, you can see that we have a nice footer here. So let's change the text to maybe made with love by Milad at 24. Okay, perfect. That's enough for these parts. Now the next thing I'd like to work on is that we need to have different pages. I have a page for home, I have a page for my links, I have a page for login, and one page for register. So I want to go to home when I click on home, and etc. So let's do this. Again, like components, what we can do here is that I can just put the code right away in app.js, or I can come up with new components for different pages. I can put new components in the components folder, or I can create another folder. To make it more clear, I want to create another folder called pages. Oops, it's not folder. Pages, and I want to come up with home page, basically RFC, not this one. Okay, and also I want to have a bunch of other pages. We'll create them later. Okay, now that I have home page, I just need to import it here. Import home page from home page, and then I need to add it here. So you can see that I have home page now, but even if I click on the other links, it's still home page. So it's time to introduce React Router DOM. With that, we can actually have routing. We can have different paths and different URLs for our website, and we can redirect user to different pages. So let's install the module first. npm install React Router DOM. It should be this. Let's see. And now we need to import it. Let's get rid of the logo, we don't need it. And here I can say import. We need to import these classes. Browser router as router route and routes from React Router DOM. I prefer not to use semicolons here for consistency. And now here I can wrap first. The very first thing I need to do is wrapping the whole thing with a browser router or router, basically. You will see in just a moment why I'm doing these things. It will be clear for you after I'm done with this. Now inside this, I want to have header and footer in all the pages, but the page itself from route to route is different. So I want to have a route, I want to have a path for home page. So here I can say routes to hold all the routes and paths we want to have. And now we need to use route class and specify the path we want. I want just simple path. So basically when the user is in this path, it shows the home page without any extra path. And it should be exactly like this. And now I can specify the element, the component basically I want to show to the user. Okay. So let's check this. If I go to this URL, basically this is just slash, and you can see the home page. But if I add extra parameters here, and if I hit enter, you see that it's vanished. The home page is vanished because it's not in the home page path. So now we can add other pages as well. For instance, I want to have my links.js or AFC. My links, and here can just copy this and use my links here and change the path to be my links. Let's check it. So if you're in the main path, it's home page. But if I change it to my links, it goes to my links page. This is how you can control different paths and pages in React.js. It's a bit different. If you're new to this world, it's a bit different from what we used to have with, PHP and, HTML and those stuff. Basically, we used to create different PHP files, different HTML files for different pages. But here we have only single entry, single page. Okay, let's continue with working on these two pages. So first I'm gonna work on the home page. So here basically I need to have a form to get the link from the user and a submit button. So we can look for forms in Bootstrap components and select a suitable one. Okay, go to input group section. Here I'm looking for an input field and a button. Should be somewhere around here. It looks good. Or we can right away write the code by ourselves. So here I want to have a form with these classes. I want it to be flex. I want to add a role. It's not necessary. And in the form, we want to have input with classes of form control and with margin 2. And also I want to add a button. With this class of btn outline success with type of submit. And put a tag here, make it short, something like this. Let's check it. Okay. Now it's a bit wide, so let's add a class to the parent element. I want to add container class. So now it looks better, I suppose. Now the next part I want to have here is the result part, basically. So let's add it. Let's add another div here with some classes. Again, container. I want to contain it. With some margin. I'm not going to explain all these classes. Basically, these are Bootstrap classes, and if you don't understand it, please some tutorials on Bootstrap, how it works, how we can use it. But I'm not going to go through all the details of every tool and every module I use here because it takes really time. And if I want to explain everything step by step, it's going to be a really, really long tutorial, and I don't want it to be like that. We want to see the big picture and work on the big picture, and then you can learn other stuff step by step. Okay, as you can see, it should be basically inside the parent div, not here. And here I can basically use card component. If we check components in Bootstrap, we have something called card, and it looks nice. I think it's good for us. We can just grab one of these things. But I'm gonna write it down myself here. Class name with class card. And we will have class card body. And here we need to have a link element with pointing to the resulted link. And we want to have some, custom link here. For instance, HTTPS my domain.com link, and we want to have a hash like this. Okay, as the short link. So let's check it. Okay, it's good. Looks good enough for now. And now we can go ahead with working on my links page. So now in my links, I'm gonna use a component from Bootstrap called basically list group. Let's check it. It should be around here, list group. So you can have a list of items, and you can get really nice styles really quickly with Bootstrap. So here I want to add container class to this div. So basically with container class, you can adjust the size or the width of the components. Otherwise, it fills the whole screen. And some margin from top. And now here I can add my list group. List group and put the links. So inside each item, I want to have a link. Basically the original link, the shortened link, and a button for deleting the link. So I'm gonna have first link to basically let's say regional link, or we can just grab a link. Let me use this Bootstrap link, just paste it here. Then another a tag for shorted one. So I can use, go to home pages, copy this. These are just some static, basically, data for creating the front end. Then we want to replace it with the actual data coming from API and the backend. And the last part is the button. I'm gonna use btn danger with delete text. Okay, if I go to my link, okay, this is what we see. It doesn't look good. So I think the problem is that we didn't add the necessary classes to the item. We want to use list group item, and I want it to be deflex because I wanted to align items in a single row. So justify content between and align items center. Now it looks really good. And I can copy and paste it over and over to see. Okay, perfect. Let's get rid of extra links. Now if you paid attention, you know that if I click on these menu links, they don't work. So let's make it work. And for that we can use React Router DOM module, we need to go to header, and here we need to import a class called Link from React router DOM. And instead of a tag elements here, we need to use link. And instead of href attribute, we need to use to. So to home, and the address should be like this. My links, and this is the address, and changes link. Okay, now if I try it, it works. Now let's work on login and register forms before going to the backend, so we can make sure that everything with the basic frontend is okay, and we can actually work on the backend. Let's add the pages. New file, login page.js, C, and register page. Add it to basically routes, create some path for them. Login and register. Import them, import the pages basically. Import home page. Import login page. Import register page. Use it here. Login page. Register page. Go to header and fix the links. So here also we want to have two links. We can add class viewflex, and inside this I want to have two links. These classes nav link login. Copy that and add a slash here, forward a slash. Register. If I check the result, to login and to register. Okay, if I click, it goes to login page and register page. If I reduce the size, responsive functionality is okay. Okay, perfect. This is what we want. Now let's work on the actual pages. Here again we can use Bootstrap forms for login. Let's look for a suitable form. Okay, here we can use this form. Just copy this. Login page. Paste it here. Pay attention that you need to fix input tags here. You need to add / at the end. Now if I check the... Okay, let's add a container to the parent. We can actually get rid of div. We don't need it. We can have form is enough. Container. And I want to have width of 25%. So let's check it. It's good. Let's get rid of the extra information here. We don't need it. And also this checkbox. I want to keep it simple for now. And instead of email address, we just want to use username. Username and password. Okay. Change it to username. And instead of ID, I want to use name. Username here. Can get rid of extra attributes. It's not important at the moment. Name, password. Okay. It's good enough. And change submit to login. Let's work on the register page. We're gonna have pretty much same thing. So we can actually just copy the form from here to here. And we just need to add extra input for password confirmation. Password 2 basically. Confirm password. If I go to register page, you can see that. And so login should be register. Okay, now we have all the pages we want, at least the basic structure. Now I think it's time to work on the backend part and creating the APIs and fetching data from database, adding data to the database, and this sort of things. Now to start working on the backend side, you need to make sure that you have Python installed on your computer. So you can just go to Python basically website and download it for your OS, and it's really easy to install it. After that, we can open a new terminal here and simply we can check the version, Python 3 version. So it's good to go. Now I want to install a virtual environment. Basically, you can get away without using a virtual environment, but it's recommended that you use for your projects when you want to have Python projects, different Python projects, create a virtual environment for each project separately. It helps you that wrap everything, all the modules related to that particular project in one place without conflicting with other projects. Okay, and also let's check if we have pip install. Pip should come with Python by default. If you don't have it, go ahead, search for it and install it. Okay, we also have pip, so the only thing you need to do, just say Python free dash m pip install virtual env. So I already have it. It's fine. Now we need to create a new virtual environment. So I cd to backend folder, and here I say Python 3-m virtual env, and the name of environment, just call it env. And now we need to activate the virtual environment. So I say source env bin activate. Now it's time to install the necessary modules. The very first module is Django, of course. So we can say pip install Django and here can create a new project, a Django project with Django admin. So first let's check the version. Okay, we have Django version 5. So we can use Django admin, start project, and the name of the project. I'm gonna go with main here because it's gonna create an app inside a project called main. So I'm gonna call it main and cd to the project. And as you can see, we have a folder called main here. If I check it inside VS Code, by default we get a main app. Basically with Django we can create different apps for different parts of the project, something like components we have in React.js. By default we have main, which includes settings and main URLs. Okay, I want to create another app for basically for user and one app for Link Shortener itself, for the main functionality. So with Python manage the py start app, and name of the app I want Link Shortener. I'm gonna call it this. You can see that we have extra folder here with all the files we need. So now the very first thing we should do, adding the app to the install apps. Here Link Shortener, and we can quickly run the project to see how it looks. Python run Python manage run server. Let's go to this path. Okay, Here is a simple Django project. Let's keep this up and running and open a new terminal here. cd backend, cd main. So here, first I want to create the data structure basically for the link shortener. And we usually start with models file in Django. Basically, in Django we have a system called ORM, which is responsible to communicate with the database. So we don't have to write SQL queries, and we just need to define the model we want for the data, and then Django does the rest. So I want to have a model called myLink, and I'm gonna extend from Django model class for that. So first we want to have a field for keeping source link. So let's call it source link. It's the main link that we get from the user models, and I want to have char field type for this field. Basically, it's same thing as char field we have in SQL. And I want to set max length to maybe 300. Now I want to keep basically when I get the link from the user, I want to create a unique hash for that link. So basically it will be the short link for that link. So a field for the hash models dot also char field max length of something round, well, let's say 50, and we want it to make it unique actually. And that's it pretty much. Later on we want to add user as well, so that we can have a dashboard for users to see all the links related to that user. But for now we want to keep it simple because we don't have user authentication yet. And one thing about Django is that by default, out of the box, it has an admin panel, which is really great. The only thing you need to do is that you create a user. So first create manage python manage.py, create super user. Well, we need to activate the environment first. Activate, go to main, create super user. Something's wrong. Python manage py create super user. Okay, before doing this, we need to, because we define a model and we added a new app, so we need to do migration. Basic migration is in Django. Migration is responsible to create the tables inside the database. So we can say python manage.py migrate. Migrate. Okay, now let's try again. Create super user. I want to say admin. Doesn't matter. Not valid. 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. Yes. Now we have the super user. Here we need to go to admin and use admin and password with that. Okay, now here we can see users and groups, but we can't see the model we have. So we just need to add it to admin panel. We can just say admin site.register, and we need to import our model. Import my link and add it here. Refresh. Okay, something's wrong. Okay, because we added, let me save this, because we added a new model here. First, we need to create the schema that that Django will use it to basically create the tables in the database. And here I need to mention that we use a local database called SQLite, which comes with Django by default. But in reality, in practice, we need to have actual database like PostgreSQL or MySQL or MongoDB. But for the sake of simplicity here, I just want to stick to this because it takes time to set up an actual database, but it's not complicated that much. So for just training these sort of things, we just need to stick to SQLite. And now, first we need to create schema with python manage.py, python manage.py, and make migrations. And you can see inside folder of migrations, you can see the schema. And now Python, Django use this schema to actually create the tables with migrate command. Okay, if I check the app, everything's fine. So let's refresh, and here you can see my links. So easily through admin panel you can add a new link. For instance, I can just copy this, paste it here, and add a hash for it. Do the same thing again. Save and add another. Okay, let's look at the links. The display is not good, so here I want to use str method and return self dot source link or hash even. So basically, instead of showing the object name, we wanna use the hash. So now this is the links we have. The next thing I'd like to work on is that if I want to add a new source link, I want to see that the hash is getting created automatically instead of just typing the hash. So what we can do, draw different ways to do it, but one way to do it is that create a method for creating a hash and then add the method to this hash as the default method. So let's create the function. I'd like to create a new file here called utils.py. You can name it whatever you want, doesn't matter. And here I want to use two libraries, import hashleap and import uuid. There's a chance that you don't need to install these modules. They should be already there. I want to call it generate unique hash, something like this. So first we create unique ID with uuid, for, and then get hash object with hash leap with MD5. Just maybe it's better to just copy and paste it from the source code in GitHub. I will post a link of the GitHub repository for the project below in the description, so you can go to the GitHub page and then grab the codes from there. You don't have to type all of these things. Unique ID and code. Hex. Dig. And here I'm going to use hash object. Hex digest. And return hex. I don't explain these things because it's not a big thing here. It's not part of the actual project, actual thing we're doing here. It's just a function. You can just copy that. Let me make sure that everything's fine here. Actually, I think I need to X here. Hash leap MD5. Code. X digest. And I just want to return, 5 letters, 5 characters, and I want to show it in lowercase. You can, have a hash of 10 characters. It's up to you. Just want to return 5 characters. And now we can use this method inside our model. Want to add default argument here, and let's import from folder, import utils. Then here we can use utils dot generate unique hash. So whenever we generate a new instance of this model, automatically it uses this method, this function, to fill this hash field. Okay, let's test to see if it works. Okay, as you can see that if I click and add my link, you can see that it's already filled automatically, so you don't have to fill it. And these are all different and unique hashes. Now that we have a bunch of links here, now we need to do we need to create related APIs to be able to fetch data in the front end. So let's create the APIs we need in the backend. To do that, we use a famous module called REST Framework, Django RestFramework. So we can install it. Let's go to Django RestFramework. Here. So we can just copy that. Paste here. Then there is a simple configuration. We need to add REST framework to the apps. So settings and here. That should be all basically. And so the next step is to create the URLs for the APIs, the endpoints we need. We can put all the URLs in the main URLs, or we can actually have separate URLs for each app. So here I'm gonna create a new URLs in Link Shortener app URLs, and basically one copy these and put it here. And instead of, so what we want to see is a list of links, so I want to call it maybe my links, something like that, or we can have it like get links. You can call it whatever you want. And here we need to define a view for that. Let's call it get links. We need to create it. We haven't created yet. And a name for this URL, get link. Also, we need to import from root, import views. And now let's go to views and create the get link view. Basically, views is the controller in Django framework, and we do all the business logic here, pretty much. We can just define a new function. There are two ways of defining APIs, or basically views. It's function based or class based. Now we want to go with function based because we don't have a really complicated application. It's really simple. So when it's simple, it's best. Basically, it's better to go with function. It's easier. And get request. And here, what we want to do, basically, we want to fetch all the links from database and then return it as a response. So I just need to import from models, import my link model. And this is a good thing about Django, that you don't have to deal with SQL queries because it already has ORM system. And now I can say links, my link, objects dot all basically. And the next thing we need to have when we want to work with Django REST framework is serializer. Basically, a serializer is responsible to form the data to make it easier to return it as a response. So let's create serializer. Or serializers.py and create a serializer. So let's import from REST framework .serializers. Import model serializer. Create a new class for link serializer. Inherit from model serializer. We want model be my link, and we need to import it actually. The models import my link, and we want to get all the fields, to return all the fields, and I want to have the hash field be as read-only field. Read-only field hash. Okay, now we can use it in the views. Support it. Serializer, import link serializer, and we can return serializer, use link serializer and pass link. And because we have multiple instances, we need to check many as true. And then we can return response. Serializer.data. And also we need to import response from, let's get rid of this, from REST framework, response, response, port, response. Okay. Now let's check the errors. There's none. Now the last thing I think is left to do is we need to add link shortener URLs to the main URLs, because this is the entry point for the project. And I can use path API, basically, and API link maybe, and include link shortener, the name of the app, and URLs. Also, we need to import include function. Okay. Response, something's wrong here. Response, yeah. Response. Okay, let's test it. We can come here, API, link, and get links. Something's wrong. Yeah, we missed actually the decorator for the API view, basically the main thing. So from REST framework.decorators, we need to import API view decorator, basically. API view, and here with this we can actually set all the methods we want to accept as the coming method, HTTP method, basically. Get, post, delete, put, all kinds of HTTP methods that we want to accept for this endpoint, for this view, basically. So because we are fetching data, we just want to make it work with get method. That should be fine. Now let's try again. I forgot about quotation here. Okay, refresh, and now we get all the links we have in the database. Now it's time to use this API in the frontend and list all the links in basically my links page. So we go to the frontend, or maybe, well, here in my links. We need first a bunch of classes. Use effect, basically hooks. We call it hooks in React.js. Use state, use context, and in just a moment we'll see why we need those hooks. First, we want to keep all the links in a variable. We can use a simple variable like const and say, for instance, links, but it's much better to use states in React because basically draw a lot of different benefits from using states, but the main idea is that when we have state, the component can get recreated based on the state, and when the state gets changed, the component gets recreated. I'm not gonna go through the technical stuff and details and the concepts. We just want to make sure that everything works. Okay, let's define our state. It's called links, and also we define a method for actually changing the data in the state. We use state, and now we define a method for getting the links with the API, and here I want to use async function and define response. Here use await keyword because of async, and here we want to use fetch module for calling the APIs for sending the requests, and I just need to copy the URL, the endpoint, and paste it here. That's all I need to do basically. Okay, good enough. Then const data response.json, and then we can update links state with the data we get from the API. Okay. Now we want that when we open my links page, at first it automatically calls this method. So we can use effect hook in React to actually to call that function, that method, when the component gets mounted. So use effect, and here I just want to say get links and pass empty array as the second argument. Okay, cool. And here I can console log data to make sure that everything's fine. If I come here, there is a problem. Let's refresh. Okay, it's a really popular problem. It's called course problem, course policy basically, or cross-origin problem. It means that when you want to access the backend from another domain or another IP or another port, the backend doesn't allow you to access its APIs because it says that you are on another port or IP. So what you need to do is to disable this policy by installing a function, by a module. It's called course headers, I think. Let's search for it. Fix install course headers Django, something like this. Yeah, it's Django course headers. Let's copy that. Pip install Django course headers. And now there is a couple of setups here. First, add course headers to the apps. Go to settings and add it here. Add this middleware. And then there is a couple of ways to actually define what URLs you want to accept as the external client. For now, I just want to allow everything to be accepted. So we can go ahead with this option, I think. Let's copy that and paste it over here. Say true. Let's try again. Frontend, if I refresh. Okay, now it works. And you can see that we get the data from the backend. Now let's show all the links in the frontend. Render those links basically. Going to my links, and here we have all the data we want in links state. So we can say something like this: links the map. Actually, we need to put it in curly brackets, and we want to pass link and index. And here, grab this, put it here. So basically what it does is that it's going to loop through all the links inside links. We're using map function here, and it feeds link and the index of the item in the array. And then we can use a link for the data here, link source. So basically, if we take a look at the data, we have hash, ID, and source link. So we can just copy it, paste it here. And for the hash part, we just want to replace the hash part here. So I can act like this. Say link.hash. And okay, it already looks good. We need to put curly brackets here. Okay. Now in case that the link is too long, we want to slice it, so we use slice and just grabbing the 51st characters. Okay. Also, we wanted to point to when we click on this, it goes to the link. So as we mentioned before, we can use a link component in React for this purpose. Replace it with 2. And we also need to import it. Import link from React router DOM. We want to replace it with basically the same thing. Actually, copy, get rid of the slice part, and here I want to go to this, like to go to this path. We can use backticks for formatting the text, and here $. Okay, cool. Fix this one. Let's check. And actually, I want it to be in a completely new tab, and I click on that. So let's change target to be blank. Same thing. Next line. Okay, something's not right here. Okay, should I put it here? Let's test it. If I click on this, it will go to the main URL. If I click on this, nothing will happen because we haven't coded yet this part. Okay, it's fine. So I think it's the part that we basically need to work actually on this part, that when we click on this, it goes to this path, but we want to make it in a way that then it fetches the backend and get the actual link from the backend related to this hash, and then redirect to that original link. This is what we are going to do. So let's create another page here. I want to call it redirect page.js. And in app.js, when it goes to link and hash, like this, we can pass the hash as a parameter. When the URL is like this, use redirect page component basically. Import it. Something's not right. Let's create the component, save it. App.js redirect page. Okay, now when I click on this, it loads the redirect page. And now inside the redirect page, we need to come up with all the logic we want. But before anything, we need to create another API for getting the data for a single link based on the hash. So let's go to the backend. URLs, not this one, this one. Add another URL. Get link basically. Get link, and let's fix this one. And here we also want to pass a hash as a, basically as part of the URL. So we can say str, let's call it hash. Now go to views, API view, should be get method, same as before, get link, request, and also we want to pass hash, get hash from the URL. And here we can use a method from Django, a function from Django to fetch the data for a link. It's from Django .shortcuts, import get object or 404. So if it can find the object based on the hash we want, it just returns a 404 error. Get object 404, use my model, my link model, and then hash equals to hash. So use serializer, link serializer, and link. It's just one instance, so many faults, and then return response serializer.data. Okay, let's test it. For instance, one of these hashes. So API link get link and the hash. Okay, based on the hash, we actually got the rest of the data. If I just enter false hash, you can see that it returns a 404 error. Okay, now we can use this in the front end. Let's go to why we have all these tabs open. Close them all. Go to redirect page. Here again, let's import necessary hooks we need. Use state, use effect. Also, because we want to get the hash from URL and then we want to redirect the user, we need two other hooks from React Router DOM. First one is use params, then use navigate from React Router DOM. And now if I save it, so here let's create a state for keeping the link, my link, and set my link. Use state empty array. Create the methods for getting the link. My link async. It's pretty much similar to what we did before for get all the links. So I'm not gonna explain again. Let's grab the endpoint. The only difference here is that instead of using quotations, we use backticks because we want to replace the hash with the hash actually we get from the URL. So let's call it hash, for instance, and now we need to get the hash from URL with using params, use params hook. Const data response JSON set my link data. Now we want to call this method using use effect hook. Get my link. Okay, if I check this, when I click on this, it goes to this link, but it doesn't do anything because we get the information, but we don't redirect the user. It doesn't redirect the user to the original link. So this is the cool part. Here we can use again use effect again here in a different way. So basically the first use effect is for calling get my links, my link, and fetching the data when the component mounts. But the second use effect is when that basically when my link state gets updated. So whenever the link is ready, we want to redirect the user. So here we can use use effect, and as the second parameter here, instead of empty brackets, we actually pass my link dot source link. So when the source link is ready, actually it's updated, it redirects. And then here can just, navigate the user. So to redirect the user, we can check if my link has source link. Here we use Windows. This is something for JavaScript. Window open to open a new tab. My link dot source link. We want to have a blank tab, so we actually want to open it in the same tab, and no referrer. Okay, I think it looks good. Let's try to see if it works or not. If I go to my link, click on this, something's wrong. Let's check the developers tool, network. If I refresh, okay, gets the data, but doesn't redirect. Check the set my link, data, get my link. Let's print some logs. Okay. Put it inside if condition, refresh. Well, it doesn't go to the my link. I can console.log my link, refresh it. It's empty. Okay, interesting. When I set my link, but let's print log the data. Okay, we forgot to add wait here, and that's the problem. Yes. Okay, let's remove the log. Well, let's try again. If I click at one of these short links, it goes to the original link. So this is the main functionality of our web application. The rest is just some extra things that we want to add. Okay, now it's time to work on the main functionality of the homepage basically. So we want to enter a URL here and make it short. It doesn't work right now, so let's make it work. The first step is creating the API we need for this. So let's go to the backend part. So here in the URLs, basically we want to create another URL. It's going to be, let's copy one of these and I'm going to call it Shortener. And we need a view for that. Let's call it create link. A name for the path, Shortener. And now let's create a view. Because we are actually we want to add a new link to the database, so we need to use a post method here. We need to accept post method. So we say post, create link, getting request, and again we want to serialize the data. Serialize link serializer, and we pass data basically request data as data. Request data, and if serializer is valid, then we would like to save serializer, and it does the rest. Basically it creates the object and then save it, store it in the database, and then we can return response serializer dot data. Okay, it's good. It's not perfect, it's not best practice, but it does the job, and this is what we want in the very first step. Let's test it to see if it works. We can come here, link, create link. I think, well, it should be shortener, I think. Change it to shortener. Okay, now here we need to enter data in JSON format. So what we need here is the source link. Source link. Let's pass this URL, for instance. And that's pretty much what we need to send, I think. Okay, let's test it. Okay, it needs double quotation, not single quotation, so my bad. Source link. Let me copy this in case we need it later. Just post it. Same problem. Okay, now it works. It doesn't need the comma at the end of the sentence. Okay, now it created the ID automatically and also the hash we need. Okay, it's good enough. I think we can use it in the front end. So let's get back to the code. And here in home page, it's important, necessary hooks. We're gonna need use state, use effect. That's all for now. And also let's import link from React Router DOM. And here first I want to create a state for keeping the link. Set my link, use state, and also create a state for source link. Source link. In just a moment we'll see why we need these things. Now let's create the method for basically creating the link using the API. Async and arrow function, const response, wait, fetch, and let me copy this URL endpoint basically. We can use proxy here instead of adding this domain over and over. I didn't do that. Maybe we do it later, but let's just keep it here. I told you it's not a perfect application. It's just simple application to start working with React.js and Django. Now, because we want to send some information and because it's a post API, we need to use post method. We need to add some extra parameters. So first thing is the method. We want to use post method. Also, we want to send the headers, and we want it to be like this: content type application JSON. And the next thing is the data itself. So we pass it as body. And what we want to pass is just the source link. So we want to keep the source link in source link state, but to pass it, we need to basically pass it in a JSON format. So we use JSON stringify, and then say source link should be source link state basically. Okay, now the next step is to basically set update the source link based on the input field. So we can create a new method, a new function for handle link field change, and here we can pass the value and then update source link state with the method set source link value. Now we want to use this function or method on the field we have here, inputs, basically this input field. We just need to say we just need to call onChange event listener basically, and we use our function here to pass event, and then we can call handle link field change function, and then pass the event target value. And now we want, when we hit the save button or make it short button, it calls the create a link method and then send the request to the backend and then get the response. So there is a bunch of ways to do that, but a popular way is that actually because here we have a form and we have a submit button, we just need to create a method called, for instance, handle create submit, pass the event, And first we wanted to prevent the default behavior of a form here, because we don't want to have that with React.js. We usually don't want to have the form working in a regular way. So we just prevent default and create, then we need to call create link. Okay. Now when we call this, then after this, when we send the response, when we send the request, we need to wait for the response basically, so we can get the hash from the response. So I say const data wait response JSON, pretty much the same as before, and then we update my link. Now this is the reason why we define my link state, because we want to hold the response, the resulted link in my link state. Then set it data, so that way we can actually show it in the result section we created here. So instead of this, can go ahead with my link. I can say just my link hash, or we can actually add a question mark, and it looks for hash if there is any, and we won't see any error basically with this. My link. Okay, looks good enough. Also, we want to actually make it to be a link, so that we can click on that and go to the link, and then I want to change it basically to, and let's use backticks for formatting text. I'm gonna go to link, and pretty much the same thing what we did in my links section when we listed all the links. You can just copy this from there, and hash. Okay, now everything's set. I think add target to be blank. Okay, let's test it. Go to Frontend. Set my link is not defined. Interesting. Okay, there is a typo. And now if I copy a link, let's say this link, paste it here, make it short. Okay, something's wrong here. So it seems that it doesn't prevent the default action of the form. The reason is that we didn't use this handle create submit in the form. We just need to copy that and put it submit event here. Now it should be good. Let's try one more time. Copy a link, paste it here, make it short. Again, same problem. Not sure what's wrong here. Let's check the Let's refresh it. Again, if I try something, make it short. Again, it reloads. It doesn't prevent the form from submitting. What's wrong here? Okay, I made a mistake here. There's a typo. It should be submit. Okay, now let's try more time. And now it works. So then if I check my links, you can see the new link here. And when I click on this, it goes to the original link. Now the next thing is working on the delete functionality, which is really simple. We just need to create the API, a really simple API. Copy one of these, say delete link, delete link, delete link, save it, create a view for that. We can use delete method here, def delete link request, and then we want to get the hash. First we need to get the link, so we can use object or 404 function object my link, and then based on hash, then we can go ahead and delete the link. That's simple. Then we can return a response, something like link got deleted. Another practice is that you return a code, a suitable code, HTTP code for the response, but that's enough for now. Okay, let's go to the front end and implement this in the My Links page. So here we can create another method function, basically. Just put it down here. Const handle delete sync function. We don't need the response, so right away we send the request. And I can copy delete link, and here we need to get the hash from URL as we did before, but well, no, made a mistake. So here we have a list of links basically. So we want to delete a link. When we click on that, let's take a look at the so basically we want to pass the hash to this function, and also let's add the method, which should be delete, and headers content type, application, JSON, and finally we again want to get the updated list of links, so we can call get links again here. Good. Now we need to call this function when we click on delete button here. So on click, we can use our function here to pass the hash basically. So here because we are already in the loop and we have access to the link hash, so I can use link.hash. So now whenever I click on one of these buttons, if we look at the dashboard here, it should call the, okay, we don't have this page, weird. Go to URLs. Okay, we didn't pass the hash in the URL, so we need to add it. Let's try again. Clean. And now it works. When I click on this, it removes the link. Amazing. So we are done now with the main functionality of the link shortener basically. The second part is working on the login and register functionalities. Okay, let's continue. Now for the user parts, I'm going to start with the backend first. So I think I want to create another app for user basically to work with user. Go to the terminal here, Python manage.py, start app, and I'm going to call it my user. Now I have a new app inside the Django project. And for user authentication, I'm going to use JWT, and we have a really popular basically module for Django and Django REST framework, which is called Django, I think simple JWT, something like that. So let's search for it and install it. Django REST framework simple JWT. Getting started. Just copy that, paste it here. Let's install it. Okay. Now there should be a bunch of configurations. So first we need to add default authentication classes. So I'm going to copy all these things. Go to settings, main settings. Yeah, we don't have any configuration for a REST framework, so let's add it here. I'm gonna remove extra lines. And it has a really great documentation, you can read it, but everything's pretty much clear. So we basically have two main APIs here. Token, one for getting the token, and then one for getting the refresh token. Basically, getting refreshing the token based on the refresh key. But we're not going to use it in this tutorial. We just want to use the token itself. But anyway, I'm going to copy this. Maybe all of it. Create a new urls.py in my user app. Paste all those codes here. That's simple. I'm gonna remove this API because we already included in the main URLs. And also we need this token verify. Copy that as well. So it's just copy and pasting. Add the simple JWT module to the installed apps. Here. Yes. Also add the my user app. Save it. So we can already test the API. Let's test it. So it's token just. Here I can say API token. The problem is that we didn't include this in the main URL. So here I want to copy this line. And I'm going to use API user and include my user URLs. So API user token. Something's wrong still. Path is not defined. Here path is not included. Yes, so copy this. Token verify view is not defined. We forgot to copy this part. Or basically we can just add it to the views. Save. Try one more time. Now here I can enter my user, super user name and password. We already created for the admin. So username admin, password 1234, post, and we get a refresh token and access token. And with this access token, we can basically do the user authentication in the front end. But one thing I'd like to do is that I want to change the settings, basic settings for JWT. I think it should be in the next pages. Yeah. Here we can change the lifetime of the token. By default, it's 5 minutes, which is really short. So It's not a good practice, but it works here. Import time delta. Run the server again. Okay, now we can use this API to log in the user. Basically, first we do the login, then we get the JWT token, the access token. We store it on the front-end part, and then when we want to send requests, we send that JWT alongside with the API. Then in the backend side, we authenticate the user based on that token. This is the process of user login and user authentication and registration. These are different things. In the login page, so go to login page here. First, let's create the login function basically to do the login. Let's call it do login sync once response wait fetch. Just copy the where is it URL. So maybe it's time to use proxy, instead of copy and pasting this domain over and over, because eventually when we want to deploy it into a real server, we need to use a real IP or a real domain name. So it will be really difficult to change it in all the places. So we can just grab it from here and then put it as proxy in the package.json. So proxy will be this. And now we need to refresh the server. Need to kill the port. Run the server again. npm start. Okay. Now it's better to replace all those, to remove all those domains we used before, so I can get rid of all these parts. Oops. What is wrong here? Okay, now everything should work fine. Yes, looks good. Get back to the test the home page. Okay. Get back to login page here. User get token, and now we need to send the rest of the information. Method must be post. Headers content type application JSON, and body, as body we want to send username and password coming from the input fields. So again we need to convert into a JSON format, so we use stringify, and here we need a state to keep the data. Let's call the state form to basically it's an object including username and password, and then we can just come here to create the state form, set form, use state. Of course we need to import use state, and probably gonna need use effect as well. Use state, use effect. Okay, then when we get the response, if the response is okay, it means that we have an access token. So just need to get the access token, JSON, and now to keep the access token, it's not useful to keep it in a variable or in a state, because when we close the window or when we refresh it, it could go away. But we wanted to keep the access token even when the user closed the tab, and when they go to the website again, we want to keep the user logged in that basically that window during that time that we defined in the backend. It was 5 days. We want to keep the user logged in for 5 days, no matter if they close the tab or stay in the tab in the website. So here we use something called local storage that is in the browser. We can store our data there, and it's really simple. We can just say local storage and set item. It's like a key value database basically. So we need a key, let's call it access key, and then we want to set data access as the value, access. Okay, this is basically what we want to do pretty much. Now the next step is to basically update the form when the user fill the fields. For that we can come up, it's pretty much similar like what we did for link field. So we need to come up with a function. We can call it handle input change. We can pass the whole event, and we can extract name and value from that event with e.target, and we set form. So here, because form state is an object including 2 different values, when we want to update it, we one way is to use spread function. Basically we use 3 dots and then the name of the state or the object. That way we basically extract all the data, and then we update the key we want, update the value we want. So here one name. So if the field is password, the name would be password, and the value is the value of the password. So password will be the value, and if the field is username, instead of name we will have username and the value for username. Okay, now just want to call this on change. You can just paste it here. It's much easier this way. On change. Now the final part is submitting the form when we hit the login button here. Const create the function we need, handle submit. Let's make sure that we don't make the same mistake we did before. a.prevent default and do login. And here for form on submit, I'm going to use handle submit. Okay. Let's clear it. Admin 1234 and login. Okay, let's fix this. Let's type email, change it to username. Okay, the token, the response is healthy. Now let's take a look at the storage. If we store the data, application, and here you can see that we have access key in the storage. Let's delete it and try one more time. So there is no value for this address. Let's log in again, and you can see the access key here stored in the local storage. It's good. Now the next step is that we redirect the user to the home page, and then in the home page, based on the local storage, based on the key stored in the local storage, we can say if the user is logged in or not logged in. So here I want to navigate the user or redirect the user to the home page. To redirecting the user, we can use a hook called use navigate from React Rotterdam. And here create an instance of that. Navigate, use navigate, navigate to the home page like this. And one thing I really like to do is that we will need it later. It's not obvious right now, but want to hard reload basically the home page. When we click on home or my link, it doesn't reload the page basically. That's the whole point of using React. It doesn't reload the whole application. It just re-render the components that is necessary. But there are times that we want the whole application re-render again, reload again. This is one of those moments because we are storing data, and then we want to force the application to check that data and then do the login. So let me put it here. Later we will understand why we need it. Just don't want to forget about that. Window, location, reload. Let's check it. So if I go to login and say admin 1234 and login, so it goes to the home page and reload page. Now when the user go to the home page, or basically any page, when a user opens the application or reload the page, want actually the application first checks the local storage to see if there is any access code. Then we want to verify that access key or access token, because we're not sure how long that access token been sitting there. It could be more than 5 years, and that access key is not valid anymore. So we need to check it with the backend to see if it's valid or not. What we can do, we can go to basically the main app.js file, which is actually the entry point of application, and we can do the magic here, basically checking everything and determine if the user is logged in or there is no user logged in. So there are a bunch of ways to do it. There is a lot of ways, but this is what we want to do here. So we want to come up with a function to verify the token, basically to make sure that the token we stored, if there is any, is valid. Here I can say const verify token, and you know that we already have the API in the backend. We added it from a simple JWT module, if you remember. Async const, and basically we want to first get the access key from the local storage. It's really simple. Local storage get item, the name was access key, and then we want to send a request to the backend to check the access token. And the API was, if you take a look, was in my user. Here it was token verify. So I can grab this, go back to app.js. Here should be user. I forgot about API part. API user token and verify. And now send the rest of information. Method post, headers, content type, application, JSON, body, stringify, and we want to just pass the token. That's all. And we already have the token access key. So now if response is okay, it means that the token is valid. Good news. But if it's not valid, so here what I want to do, I want to basically keep the information of the user in state, maybe, but we want to first basically extract the information from the access token. because access token includes the info we need. Let's take a look at this access token. For instance, if I copy that and go to a website like jwt.io, I think. Yeah, here I can paste my access token, and you can see that this access token, if you decode it, it includes user ID and some other information. Now also I want to include the user name in the access token. We can do that by modifying the backend basically. So let's go to the backend, my user app. So here we have these URLs, but the only thing we need to do is that I'm gonna add serializer serializers.py, and here I want to create a new serializer called my token. So let me copy this from the website simple JWT. The explanation is there. Customizing token claims, I think, if I'm not wrong. Yes. So here it says that if you want to include username, you can just copy this, paste it in my token obtain, and here user should be username that should be all. Now in simple JWT we can basically copy this and paste it in settings. Okay, we already have config for that. Let's paste it here. My app should be my user serializers. Okay, that should be all. Is to present both versions. So we generate view follows from fact that refresh token. You also need to include a URL route to your subclass view. I'm not sure if this is enough or not, but let's try. Go to Frontend, login. Let me delete this. Admin 1234 login. Grab this, paste it here. Something's wrong. Okay. Copy the whole key, paste it here, and you can see the username here. Okay, good. Now we have the basically the token JWT token in the front end. If we go to app.js, we have it. What's going on here? Cancel. We have it here, access key. So now we want to decode it. We can use a module for decoding the JWT. It's called JWT decode, I believe. Let's make sure. npm install JWT decode. Yeah, that's it. Just copy that. Paste it. npm I JWT dash decode. Then here you can import JWT decode from JWT decode. Okay. And next thing, I want to define a new state. So from React, where is React? Doesn't matter. I can just import React, use state, use effect. I'm not sure if we need them or not. For now, that should be enough. From React. Define a state to keep the user info set user info use state. Okay, and then here we can update user info. So set user info using spread operator function. We can update user info object, and I can set access token to be the access key, and also the username. We need to decode JWT token, so JWT decode access key, and we want to get user name from that. Otherwise, we just want to pass null for the two values, because the token is not valid and we don't have a logged in user, basically. Okay, verify token. Now we use effect to call verify token. Whenever that basically the whole app gets mounted, and just pass empty array user info. So maybe we can console log console, or maybe here after the response can console log the user info, perhaps, to see if it works or not. Response not defined. 29 response. Yes, we didn't get the response. Actually, Actually, we get the response. Typo response. We have response. Okay. Console. When I refresh, we get empty array. So let's do the login again. 2, 3, 4. Still empty. Maybe response is not okay, so let's check it. Oh yes, the response is okay. Maybe this is not the best place to put this. If I put it after this. Okay, now if I refresh, what we can do is that we can use effect and put the log here whenever it actually user info dot username gets updated. What about now? Okay, now we can see the information, access token and username. So let's get rid of this extra use effect. We don't need it. Now when we verify the user and we have access to the username and access token, we want to populate this information throughout the whole application. We need to have access to this data from any page, from any part of the application. For that, there is a couple of ways, but popular over these days is using use context hook for that matter. So let's use it. We just need to import, create context hook from React. Then we need to actually create a context for our purpose. For instance, user context for what we want to do. The only thing we need to do is that create a folder, new folder called context here, and inside this create user context.js. The whole thing we want to have here is just import create context from React const user context create context, and then export fault user context. That's all. Then we go back to app.js, import user context, and we need to wrap the whole thing with user context provider. So we can wrap the whole application, or we can just include the parts we want. So basically we want to have access to the data even from the header or footer. So let's include the whole app. Basically here would be a good place. So user context dot provider, and we want to pass the value, basically states and methods we want, so we can access from anywhere to those things. And as the value, first I want to pass user info, and then I want to pass a method to update user info whenever needed. So I can come up with a new function called const update user info, pass value, then we then use the method for updating the state. We can't just pass the this method for the state right away. And then we can pass update user info as well. So now we have access to the user info itself, and also we can update it throughout the whole application basically. So let's test it. The very first part I want to access to the user info is the header. So we go to header. Simply we import user context, and then we get user info and a function for updating that. From user context, but we need to use a hook called use context. To use that user context we defined. Let's port it. Use context. Now we have access to user info. So here, basically, if the user is logged in, we don't want to show login or register button. But if there is no user activate, so we want to show these buttons. What we can do here is simple. Basically, I can say just, well, user info username. If there is any username, show me this. Otherwise, show me this. So I can grab the whole thing and put it here. And inside this, I can say maybe hello. Let's put it in one line like this. Hello. Username basically. User info. If it has username. Looks cool. Also, we want to have a logout link. So I'm gonna use link component here. Say log out. Did we import link? Yes, we already imported. So let's check the result. User info is not defined. User info. I grab this and put it here. Okay, so we have a typo. User info. Now you can see that it says hello admin, the name of username. Now if I get rid of the logout button doesn't work right now, but to log out we just need to delete the local storage. Now here if I refresh, you can see that it shows login register, and if I log in again, 234, and then it updates the state and says hello admin logout. And now let's work on the logout functionality. So I want to create a separate basically page for that, even though it's not a really complicated thing, but it's better to have a page and put the logic there. So should be logout page.js, and here we want to simply first let's create the component RAFC, and then here let's create the first. Basically we want to clear the storage and then navigate the user to the home page. That's all pretty much we want to do. And also we want to empty the user info we have in the context. So let's import a few things up here. I'm gonna use use effect and also use context and use navigate as well from React Auto DOM. And let's create the navigate. Use navigate const user info update user info and use context user. We didn't import user context, so let's import it. Import user user context from context user context. And that's the reason why we actually defined update user info function, because we wanted to basically empty the user info variable or the context. So we want to do it as soon as a component gets rendered. So we use effect for this. Local storage dot remove item and the key, which is access key, and update user info, basically empty array, and then navigate to the home page. That's all what we want from logout page, but we need to define it in apps.js in the routes section. So here we can create route, maybe better to put it up here. If I just copy this log out page, log out, and up there we need to import it. Log out page. And let's get back to the header component here to check if the logout link points to the right URL. Log out. And that's all, I believe. Let's test it. Here, here, if I click log out, so you can see that it clears out the storage and also gets back to the home page. Let me log in again. Admin 1 2 3 4. Log in. Okay. If I go to my links and say log out, goes to the home page. So even if we are not logged in, we can see my links dashboard, which is not good. We want to make it work under basically authenticated permissions. So let's get back to my links component, and here first I want to import user context, and then I want to define const user info, update user info, use context, user context. And what I'd like to do is if there is no logged in user, I want to redirect the user to the login page. So let's import use navigate as well. Use navigate. Here const navigate, use navigate. So basically in use effect, first we want to check if the user is logged in. If we have the access key, then get the links. Otherwise, just redirect it to the login page. So here we can just simply check if user info has access token. Otherwise, just navigate to the login page. That's simple. Let's try it. Something's wrong here. Okay. See the console. Let's first fix one warning here. Basically, every item in a list should have a key. Otherwise, we get a warning. So we can set key as index, or index as the key. If we refresh, we don't get the warning anymore, but the problem is still there. Line 8. Okay, update user info. Well, we should use curly brackets. Okay, save it. Refresh again. Still we have some warning valid for HTML. Let's get rid of for wherever it is. It's not important, just ignore the warnings. We just want to focus on the main functionalities as long as it works for now. You can make it better after this tutorial by checking all the warnings and errors and all the bugs there. So if I click on my links, I can go to homepage, but if I go to my links, I'm not logged in, so it redirects me to a login page, and then I need to log in. 2, 3, 4, and now I have access. I have access to the links. Great. Now let's work on the register part here. We still need to do something with the backend because we don't pass the user with the APIs and we don't store the data specific to a user. We want every user has its own dashboard with its own links, but it's not like this yet. So let's first work on the register API, I believe, or we can actually go ahead with the main functionality. So let's work on that part. Let's get back to the backend. So here in the model for Link Shortener, we need to add a new field called user because we want to assign a user to every link that gets created in the database, so that later we can know this user has these links. That's the whole purpose of user authentication and registration. So models, and here we use foreign key type, foreign key, and I'd like to use user model from Django. Country. That's a good thing about Django, that you already get a user model, so you don't have to define it yourself. And pass user. So basically we want this field be in relation with this model. And on delete models cascade. It means that when we delete a user, all the links assigned to that user will also get deleted. We don't want to keep some links without a user. Okay, that's fine. Now we need to run Python manage.make migration first to create the schema. Migrations, we are in a wrong terminal. It should be here. Python manage.make migrations and Python manage migrate. Okay, it's good now. The next thing is that when we create a link with the create link API, we want to also assign the user. So we go to views and create link. One thing we can do here, there is a couple of ways to do that, but one way is to just pass user. Here we can just pass user as requested user, because we are using REST framework simple JWT. When you use that, it's already integrated with REST framework. So when you send the access token along with the API, the modules do the rest for you, and the user will be here in the request. But also I want to add a check here, so to check if there is any user, because we need the application to work even if the user is not logged in. So they can create a link, but they can't have access to the dashboard. If user is anonymous, do the say. If it's anonymous, don't pass the user. Just save it without user. Otherwise, pass the user as well. And now let's do some other modifications here, because with get links we want to get just the links related to user. So we can use here, instead of all, use filter, and user should be user.request. Let's leave get link as it is. The best practice here is that we actually check if the also the link here is assigned to the user requesting this basically get link or delete link, but we just want to pass it right now. It's gonna make it really complicated, and we don't have the time for that. One more thing is left to do, is introducing permissions here. So because we want, for instance, this create link, not this one, for instance, get links should be only for authenticated users, or delete link is also for authenticated users. So we just want to allow the users which are authenticated and have the access key. So here we can use permissions from Django REST framework. We just need to say from REST framework import permissions, port is authenticated, also allow any. So in this case we want to allow anybody. So permission, I didn't import this decorator. Permission classes allow any. For get links we want to give the permission only to authenticated users. Is authenticated. Same thing for delete link. Now what we need to do in the front end is that we should pass the access key if the user is logged in. to make it work. For now, if I try to see my links, if I log in, admin 234, if I go to my links, it doesn't work because the backend doesn't allow us. So we need to pass the access key as well. Let's go to my links, for instance, here, where here we fetch links. So here we need to method first. It's get headers content type application JSON, and here we also need to send authorization, yes, backticks. You need to put bearer keyboard. It's defined in the settings of simple JWT. You can change it if you want, but for now it's by default it's bearer. And then we put, already we have user info, I believe. Yes, we already have user info here, so we can send access token with it. That's all, I believe. Let's test it. So admin 234, if I go to my links, you can see that the dashboard is empty because there is no link assigned to this user. So go to homepage. Also for Link Shortener API, we need to pass authorization key. We can basically copy and paste the same thing from here. Do we have user info already here? We don't have user info here, so let's import it. Port user context, also const user info, update user info, use context, user context, and it should work now. Let's try. Go to home, create a new link, new short link, make it short, go to my links. There is an error here. Let's check the backend terminal, see what's going on here. Well, request is not defined. Request, okay, there is typo there. Line 24, request. Okay, let's refresh. My links. Now when I go to my links, you can see the this user admin users links here. I can add another link, for instance, and you can see it here. Okay, and let's fix it for delete button as well. It's in the component my links, and we just copy this and pass it here. That's simple. If I hit delete, it works. But here there is a problem. If I log out and if I try to do something, for instance, create a new link, there will be an error because it says unauthorized. Because basically we are sending the authorization header with all the requests even when there is no access token, which is wrong. We need to just send the correct access token and send authorization header when there is any token. So let's get back to home page here, and up here I want to create headers be like this. Grab this, put it here, and then I say if user info has access token, then and only then headers should contain authorization header. I grab it from here and put it here, and instead of this header I just say headers. Now if I try it one more time, you see that it works fine because we only see my links when the user is logged in, so there is no need to do that check. I believe the only part is left to do is the register functionality, which is really simple because we are just using username and password then registration. So let's create the functionality in the backend. So in my user app URLs, we're going to need another path called register, and we need a view for that. Register, let's call it register user, and a name for it, register user. Okay, now let's create the view we needed, and you can say register user request. So here, like what we did with basically create link view, we need a serializer for user registration. So in serializers file, you can create a new class, user register serializer, and we're going to use model serializer from RESTFramework for that. From RESTFramework serializer, import model serializer. That's it. There is a couple of ways to define a serializer in RESTFramework. For our job here, we need to define the fields actually we want to serialize. So the very first field is username, so serializer from REST framework port serializers. Serializes, it's pretty much like how we defined the model for the link. So we use char field here. It should be required. It's a mandatory field. And also we want the user be unique. So we use a validator here. Validators, and we pass unique validator. We can import it from REST validators, REST framework validators, port unique validator, unique validator, and query set must be user.objects.all. So it compares it with all the users we have, and we need to import user actually from Django contrib of dot models port user. Second field is password. Basically we need to define password twice because we want to confirm password as well. Serializers dot char field. It should be write only field. True. We don't want to read it. And it's also required. Let me copy this. Password 2. Now class meta. Model is user and field fields username, password 2. Now let's redefine or basically override validate method for the serializer to actually check if two passwords are equal. If attributes password not equal to the other password, we see password 2, just raise an error. Serializers validation error. We could say something like password fields didn't match. Otherwise, return attributes. Also, let's override create method here. Validate data to actually get the user objects dot create to create the user with username comes from validated data username, and then here we can also set the password because here in the database password gets encoded. We need to use set password function or method. This is why we are doing it manually. And finally we save the user and return user. I hope this works here. There is an error in URLs views. We didn't import views. Let's import it. Import views. We have a problem in views. So now we can, from serializers, we can import our user register serializer, user register serializer, and pass data request data, and if serializer is valid, just save the serializer, or basically create the user, then return response status. Let's import necessary classes from REST framework. Response port response, also from REST framework port status dot http 200 OK. Otherwise, return response serializer dot errors with status of http 406. You can find these status codes from REST framework documentation. You don't have to write it down, you can just copy and paste it. Acceptables should be something like this. I hope it's correct. We have a problem in serializer. It says there is no module name REST framework.serializer. I believe it should be serializers. And now let's add the API view as well from REST framework decorators, import API view as well as permissions classes. API view must accept post and For permission classes, basically allow any REST framework dot permissions import allow any. Now I believe our API is ready. Let's go to the front end and use it there in the login page, or basically register page, sorry. So here we need the functionality. If you don't have anything right now, I'm gonna import use state as well as use navigate from React router DOM const navigate. I don't explain these things because we already used these things before. Define a state called form and also handle input change function const same as what we did before for other forms. Basically, you can just copy and paste everything from login page. A lot of similar functionalities. Do register sync response wait fetch API user register. First, let's have method post headers content type application JSON body. We want to just pass username password, so stringify the form if response is okay. Redirect the user to login page. Now the last function is handle submit. e.prevent default, and then do register form on submit, handle submit, on change, use handle input change, put it here, copy and paste for all the fields, all the input fields basically, and here name is password 2. Okay, now everything should work fine. Let's test, see how it goes. If I clear caches, so new user 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 register. I need to fix this. It's username, so register, we get internal error, str object is not callable. Where this happened? My user views register user. Okay, so something's wrong with the URL you have here. Yes, it should you put the parentheses. And missing more required potential augment request. Views, let's check the views. Request. Actually, we don't need parentheses here. What's wrong here? Let's try one more time. Okay. Well, yeah, it's user register views, framework views. Let's go to views, API view. I believe maybe that's the problem. Let me fix this. And yes, it worked. So new user 1 2 3 4, log in, and now we can see new user. I can add new link for that, and if I go to dashboard, I should see all the links to this user. It's weird. Let's try again. Empty. Why it doesn't pass? Well, probably there is something wrong with what we go to my links, I believe, and here the authorization or homepage. So here have headers. If user info has access token, basically doesn't send authorization. Okay, authorization is wrong. There's a type of authorization. That's the problem, I believe. try again. Make it short. Go to my links now. You can see link one more time. And now we have 3 links assigned to this new user. If I log out, I don't have access to my links, but I can still create some links. If I click on the link, it goes to the original link, and I can just copy and use this short link. Of course, we need to have a real server and real domain name or IP address, but locally it works fine. I think I pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover in this tutorial. So that would be the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you are new to this channel, and please hit the hit the like button or leave a comment. This way you support me to continue this creating more videos, this sort of videos, and I hope to see you again. Thank you for watching till now. Have a nice day. Bye.